Hello and welcome to the Alpha Movement Podcast. My name is Tom Foxley, and on today's show, it is a bit of a different one. But before I get into that, a bit of housekeeping to take care of. So I ran a competition a while ago to see who could leave the best review on iTunes, and that honour falls to, I'm guessing your name is Mike Page because your username is MikeJS Page. You left a 5-star review saying, great podcast for gaining training, health and motivational tips/hacks to enable simple, elegant ways of improving. Clearly of the same ilk of Tim Ferriss and Jocko Willink. Thank you very much. That makes me feel good. Episodes are generally shorter and easier to absorb. Sometimes the audio quality isn't the best, I'll let you know. Tom's evolving confidence with the mic are more than compensated for by the quality of guests, content and advice. Well worth listening. Mike, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It makes me feel good. And what you have to do is to gain your prize is email tom@alphamovement.co with the headline, I fucking won something. Okay, and I'll send you the thing that you did win. Cool. So on to today's show. This is a podcast that my very good friend Hugh Robinson has released called Reconditioned, and I was lucky enough to be invited on as a guest, and here is that episode.
Today I'm with my good friend Tom Foxley. Welcome, Tom.
Hey man.
How's it
Thanks
going?
for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm very, very good, thank you. How are you?
Very well, very well. So if you'd just like to introduce yourself, like who is Tom and what do you do?
Yes, so I'm obviously Tom Foxley. I run the Alpha Movement and the podcast entailed in that. And it started off really as a chance to get men to better themselves who didn't have very much confidence. But I've realised that confidence is a very small aspect of health as a total human person. So I now teach and interview people who have an understanding of what health is in terms of a full, I don't like the term holistic, but holistic view.
Okay, that's
awesome. Kind of where I am right now.
Yeah, I mean, having that overarching kind of theme of understanding a person's background, their mindset is so important when it comes to health. And I think it's something that as an industry, the health and fitness industry kind of neglects massively. So it's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with you on that. There's lots of people who focus on very individual aspects of health. Whether that's just, like, for example, a bodybuilding style personal trainer or a psychologist or any kind of other thing like that. But when you combine them together and when you kind of get that holistic view, that was in inverted commas for all of you who didn't see my fingers, you end up with a much happier person.
Yeah, for sure, man. So where did this all start? What kind of bred the Alpha Movement?
So I think, we're all kind of a sum total of everything that's happened to us, but I think kind of the idea of wanting to make people better came from my own time at school, which wasn't great, to be honest. It was a lot of bullying, and this isn't a sob story or anything, it's just going to give you guys an understanding where I came from. It was a lot of bullying, not a very happy time, like physical and emotional bullying. It wasn't cool. I was always, as a result of that, you can imagine quite a timid person, a little shit, but still timid. And that kind of affected me so much. And then I read a book called Bounce by Matthew Syed, who's an Olympic table tennis player, and it changed my life. It completely changed my life on that understanding that I was in control of what happened, as opposed to things happening to me. I chose what happened to me, and that was such a big switch in my mind. And I can remember sitting down in my PE class with a teacher called Mr. Edwards, who I'd definitely give a shout out to now. But he was I was sitting down there, and he read this passage out, and I was just like, it completely changed how I thought in that instant. Like, it's amazing to have that kind of that mindset switch so instantaneously. And I got back, went on to Amazon, spent the 10 quid or whatever I had in my bank account at that time as a teenager, and bought that book.
That's awesome. So moving on from school, you obviously had a bit of a background within the Marines, right?
Yeah, so like my goal from passing out, or my goal from finishing sixth form was always to go into the Royal Marines as an officer. I completely fucked up my A levels. I really couldn't be I didn't want to be in school. I didn't like the environment, and that reflected itself in my grade. So I decided to go in as a regular recruit. I got down, I did all the recruiting stuff, passed my tests, and had my start date, my boots, and all that kind of stuff. But whilst I was down there, they made the mistake of telling me there was a reservist option. And what that means, for anyone who doesn't know, is it's kind of like a part-time job. I did until very recently, Wednesday evenings, and every third weekend you go on an exercise. Training was pretty tough. And yeah, it was a really big part and big objective in my life. But what's quite interesting is I was doing that to prove to other people, mostly to other people, partially to myself, what I was kind of made of, and that really it wasn't a good stimulus to make a choice that was going to define the rest of my life. It wasn't who I wanted to be; it was who I didn't want to be, and that was a big change.
That's interesting you say that, and I feel like a lot of people go through life with extrinsic motivation, trying to prove themselves to others, trying to be like other people. So what for you was the big transition or the catalyst for your change in your mindset to then want to, follow your intrinsic goals?
So, I can remember actually, I was on the final test was a 30 miler, which is you've spent a week in the field, doing kind of exercises, and then you do 3 commando tests before that, which you can imagine are fairly tough, and the last one's a 30-mile run over Dartmoor.
Yeah, it sounds fucking horrific.
Yeah, it wasn't nice. The blisters on the blisters I had were literally the soles of my feet at that point. But I wasn't I was finding it really tough, and everyone else was kind of cracking on, and this was the first time I'd stumbled in the whole process, and I thought to myself, I know, I'll just think of what's got me through until now, and that was, I'm going to prove to myself and everyone that I know what I can be, and that really wasn't, it just wasn't working. I didn't get angry with it, I didn't get motivated, I didn't feel like I really wanted to do it, I just wanted to be out of there. And then basically, it's not my story to tell, but someone very, very close to me and my family passed away very recently, considering that time. I think it was within 6 months or so of that time, or actually a couple of months. And thinking of, actually, this is my one chance, or it could be my one chance to do something really worthwhile and really push myself and kind of get past who I used to be and into this new person that I now am, and it's kind of the proof there. And that was the catalyst. And also thinking, God, get the violins out, about my girlfriend and the relationship that I wanted to have with her, and that kind of stuff. And it was that very intrinsic thing, as you mentioned, that kind of got me through.
Yeah, I'm under the belief that intrinsic motivation is much more powerful than extrinsic, and having your own goals and knowing why they're important to you is so powerful. And you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but how have you reconditioned yourself to create success in your own life?
So, I don't know, success is always such a funny term, because there's always, I've got a huge podcast. I've got a very big podcast now for how long I've been doing it, and it's very successful in that kind of regard, and I'm able to help a lot of people. But there's also I'm still going through a lot of struggles at the moment. I want to get the business to a much better point. There's always kind of interesting things happening with relationships. It's never as successful as social media, I would say, which is a big thing. But in terms of getting success, there's an excellent book actually called Psycho-Cybernetics, by Maxwell Maltz, I think, and I've just started reading it recently, but it's essentially confirmed a lot of what I've been thinking until now. Our brain is essentially a problem-solving machine, and whatever end goal you put in front of it, it will seek to achieve that. When we constantly play negative emotions and negative scenarios over in our mind, we like I think what happens is we mistake that for our goal, and that's what our body works towards, and then we end up in this constant state of like a downward spiral, like a negative thing. But when we really visualize some positive goals and actually build on the successes we've had, that's when we start to move forward. So I think, in a more succinct answer, the way that I've built success into my life is by lots and lots and lots of small successes and focusing on them rather than the things that aren't going my way.
Yeah. Are you a fan of gratefulness lists or journaling at all? Because I found with myself, this was a really kind of profound way of looking at, other sources of success, whereas sometimes I might be beating myself up and focusing on those negatives. Sometimes it can be hard to focus on the positives and focus on the solution. But for me, journaling and writing gratefulness logs was really powerful. Have you had much experience with that yourself?
Yeah, so I've got a self journal, and it's very good in terms of organising my day. And in there is the three things you're grateful for in the morning. But what I find is I'm actually naturally quite grateful. I spend a lot of time thinking about trying to be present, which is like quite a big thing. We can go into that in a second if you want, but expressing gratitude, I tend to do it on quite a frequent basis, and I don't know whether I definitely never used to, and I don't know what the trigger was. But being in a successful relationship or a good relationship is definitely a part of that. But as soon as you start, it makes you feel so good when you're grateful for something, and when you do that frequently, just as I mentioned before, it becomes part of your life, and that's been a big thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really kind of powerful tool to change your mindset so you're just consistently in that positive state of mind rather than reminding yourself of the negative things going through your life, which a lot of the time aren't even that negative, that we've just been kind of, conditioned to think that certain things are bad by, our upbringing or the media or whatever else as well. Which kind of leads me on to my next question. So in your own life, how did you go against social conditioning? Because you talked a bit about your past in school and then obviously, joining the Marines. So how do you think you've kind of reconditioned or gone against social conditioning?
Well, define what you mean by social conditioning, just to kind of clear up exactly what I'm thinking.
So, typically people go through school, they're set up, they're told what path they need to go down to, you're good at maths, you're good at science, whatever, you should go to university and do these things, you should go into this job, you should be this way, listening to society tell you what to do as opposed to kind of choosing your own path in life.
Look, I was never someone who wanted to do what everyone else had done. I really don't enjoy that. If you just look at my parents were obviously very influential on me when I was growing up, but they were always self-employed. They always encouraged me to push against the grain and to kind of march to my own beat, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And they were very big. And then because I maybe it's because of not fitting in that I wanted to push back even harder. And whilst you're going through a very typical social environment, it's very hard. It's very hard to be the one that stands out and is different to everyone else. But as you progress further in life and as you meet more people like you, it takes you further than being socially acceptable sometimes does. I'm not saying that following, getting a 9-to-5 is a bad thing. I'm not saying that doing what lots of other people have done before you is a bad thing. But I just found for me that pushing against the grain was more me. And I'm typically someone who doesn't really, or who pushes back on things and wants to do things my own way. If there's my own way to do something, I'll try that first. As my girlfriend will say time and time again, I will never do things the easy way. I want to do my way first, and that's kind of, it has its hindrances, but it definitely has its benefits too.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that, and I kind of had a similar kind of journey and felt like I never fitted in, and I was always trying to do things my own way and rebel against the system and everything else. And yeah, it's definitely important to realise that that's not a bad thing, because I think a lot of people do sometimes, especially when you're in school, and especially if that results in bullying. You listening to everybody else tell you, oh, you're not a part of our society, you don't fit in here, you're not right, you're not good enough, and that it can be hard to stay resilient to that. but it's definitely
like,
important.
I detest the school system. I think it's like, in the UK especially, it's awful for making people feel bad about themselves. Like, you're either in the sports team or you're not, and if you're not socially acceptable. You're either very good at maths or you're not, and like, these are your grades, and this is what we're going to show to everyone else. And like, actually, you're not very good, so let's put you in a lower set. So you you can have good kind of thoughts behind it, but like, it's very like, if you're not doing well or if you don't fit in, it's like they don't want you there, and that's what I find tough, and like, that's what pushed me back against things.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that, I mean, that's an entire conversation in itself, and I grew up thinking I was stupid. I was never good at sport. I was never particularly good at anything artistic. I was kind of average at everything. I wasn't particularly bad at anything, but I wasn't good at anything either. And that setup when I left school made me feel like I'm going to have, an average job, an average life, and everything. Nothing's ever going to be amazing. Whereas when I kind of turned around and said, you know what, fuck you, I want to do my own thing and live my own life, it's funny, you look back and you just like, you realise how bad school is in that regard, and in the sense that, and again, it goes back to that motivation and how everything in school is about extrinsic motivation, like, working towards those badges, or the SATs or GCSEs, those grades, the weekly tests, whatever it is. You're always working towards something extrinsic. It's never about enjoying the process. It's always about the end result. It's never about actually. There's no reflection on anything. There's no and it's that thing sometimes, if you haven't done well in your homework or tests and things, rather than being like, oh, okay, so this didn't work out, let's have a look and see how we can fix it. It's, you're a fucking idiot, you got an F, you should have tried harder. That's what I heard over and over again from my teachers, that I didn't try hard enough. And I'd be like, well, maybe I don't give a fuck about whatever subject that was. It's like, it's hard, and it's something that would take a very long time to change, but I think there are a lot of faults in the school system.
Exactly, it's like you saying that you were told you didn't try hard enough. Well, maybe actually the teaching wasn't fucking good enough. Maybe you didn't hold me accountable. Maybe I'm just not interested in this, and I want to be doing something different. That's the long and short of it. Maybe it's not what I want to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, to motivate someone 6 hours a day to learn kind of monotonous information that is literally just out of a textbook, and you can tell the teacher's not even interested in it because they've told the same shit 20,000 times. It's like, you kind of realise that, like, well, if they're not kind of motivating me to be here, I'm not intrinsically motivated to be here, why should I do well? Why should I, spend my spare time as well as the time in school trying to learn these things that I don't think are important to me? And I'm glad. Looking back, I'm glad that I fucked off doing my homework. I'm glad that I went out to skate or ride my bike or do stupid shit instead of spending hours revising for tests that literally meant nothing to me, because maybe if I had have done well academically, I would have ended up in a job that I hated. Whereas because I wasn't as academic, I ended up getting into sport. I still went to university, but that led me on into a self-employed route, which then led me on to this. So I feel like it kind of worked out for the best. But a lot of people, it doesn't work out like that. A lot of people think, I'm stupid, I'm not meant to be doing much with my life. And they end up getting jobs that they hate, that lead nowhere.
Sorry, I completely missed what you said.
It's okay, you carry on.
Still there, dude?
Yeah, you carry on.
Well, the thing is, 90% of what we learn at school, or what I learned at school now, is entirely irrelevant because of this thing called Google. The ability to memorise facts and spew them back at people is no longer beneficial to anyone. What is beneficial is developing some emotional intelligence, understanding why people do the things they do and what motivates them, and problem solving.
Yeah.
Those are the two things that are now beneficial to people. If you can solve problems, you can work in any kind of environment. You can solve, but more to the point, you can solve your relationship issues. You can work through any problem that you might have, and you're sorted.
Yeah. I feel like subjects like maybe if you're training to become a lawyer, or you're working in maths or science, then understanding facts is important, but for the vast majority of people it isn't, and you're 100% right there. And I feel like the education system, it needs to change, but it also needs to be flexible, and it's going to have to adapt quickly to this new world that we're living in, where everything is digital, everything is just progressing really, really quickly. Otherwise, people are going to be left behind. People finish school not having a clue what they want to do and not having any of the skills they need to kind of survive on their own, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. I personally feel that you shouldn't really know what you're going to do at the end of school, because if you're judging the rest of your life on 16, 18, like maybe more years of education, when you're not actually a formed human being, you've only been thinking for yourself. Like I don't even think when I left school I was thinking for myself. I think I was relying on what other people told me to think in kind of 5-6 years ago.
I mean, especially, those are big decisions to make when you're, 16, 18 years old. Especially, if you're going into jobs or university, you kind of make those decisions when you're 16, when for most people, 16 is a tricky age. It's a very emotional time. You're going through a lot, physically speaking, hormonally speaking, and the decisions you make are very emotionally based. And then the only kind of the only kind of direction of logic you have is usually from your teachers and parents, who probably want for you what you don't need. A lot of the time, your parents just want what they think's best for you, which is safety and security, which isn't necessarily what most people need. A lot of people need that discomfort and need that challenging life. Yeah,
100%. Like, I tell you, you're doing something now which I think should be compulsory for everyone, and that's travelling. I think like the kind of the British idea of having a gap year, which not many countries do, I think should be compulsory worldwide. It's such a liberating experience, and it's like just getting away from your own town, city, whatever area, and it's like seeing how different people live is essential.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, yeah. I mean, like, I've met so many people from around the world and heard so many different stories and met so many interesting people that I never would have met. And you see people that grow up in the same times, in the same places, same towns. They don't kind of stray away from their friendship groups. They're friends with the same people all their lives. And a lot of the time, their friends can hold them back. They don't have growth friends. They just have friends they're with for the sake of it. And it's like, when you travel, you meet these incredible people that kind of grow with you and challenge you to do new and exciting things. And it's definitely a powerful thing to do, travelling.
Yes, 100%. I'm such a firm believer of the fact that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Yeah. And by being around different people, you develop that emotional intelligence that I was just mentioned, and you just become a much more open person and an enjoyable person to be around.
Yeah, understanding human behaviour for me has been probably the most important journey within my journey of self-development. Understanding others, understanding why people react the way they do when you say certain things or act certain ways. It's so important, and we react as a society. We react so badly to other people, and we react badly to criticism as well. If somebody tells you something, it might be from a good place. Like, for example, you could probably do with not smoking, or you could probably do with losing a bit of weight. It's going to be good for your health, or something like this. Most people would take a lot of pain from that. They'd be like, what's wrong with me? Why is this guy saying these things? This guy's an asshole. Rather than kind of being accepting of that and being like, oh, okay, maybe they're looking out for me. And then again, when people lash out at others as well, if somebody insults you, rather than taking it to heart, you can kind of be like, right, well, obviously this guy's got a lot of shit going on in his life. He's lashing out at me because he's just mirroring his own insecurities or issues out on me. So emotional intelligence is such a powerful thing. And I think over the next 10 years, there's more. I mean, at the moment, there's a lot of people talking about it. And I think it's going to become something that hopefully becomes more ingrained in our society, because it is so important and such a powerful tool to understand.
Definitely. You look at like Gary Vaynerchuk, and his whole career is built on how he understands people, and he understands how they react to what he says and how he talks to people. That's pretty much an entire multi-million-dollar business is built on his ability to understand how people act.
Yeah, Definitely. So going more on the topic of mental health now, we've not kind of really touched on this at all, and we'll only touch on it a little bit. But what's your opinion on depression, how it's perceived by others, and do you think that the stigma attached to mental health illnesses is something that needs to be addressed in our society?
Yeah, so, like, for those of you who don't know, I kind of skipped out a fairly important part of my story. When I was living with my auntie, I had nothing really to work for. I was on the dole, I was very unhappy. Like, somehow my girlfriend stuck around with me, for which I'm eternally grateful, but, like, I didn't have very much going for me, and I was 100% depressed. I was never, like, diagnosed with it, but, like, I'd wake up in the mornings just feeling like, what is even the point of being here? And it wasn't a fun time to be around in, obviously. But depression, like, I still haven't kind of made my mind up about what it is. There's obviously such varying degrees of it, but I think the big thing that kind of changed things for me, as I mentioned before, is just like education. It's just like the getting the view that it's possible for me to change, completely change my mindset, and completely like got me out of that depressed state.
Yeah. I mean, one of the kind of opinions I have when it comes to depression and mental health in regards to obesity as well is, as you can see, like more and more people are struggling with depression and mental health illnesses moving forward as a society, and as such the rates of obesity are increasing as well. And I think the two are heavily related. I think that a lot of people know what they need to do to lose weight, and that a lot of people know what they need to do to be healthier, but there's an underlying issue there that I think people aren't looking at, and I think that comes down to obviously mindset, but also mental health as well. Is that something that you kind of like understand or relate to? Or?
So I can completely see the correlation there, 100%, and I think it's a whole lot more than comfort eating. I think it's, like, my big thing is that I think people mistake happiness for comfort, and they think getting more comfortable, i.e. spending less time working, less time going through hardship, will make them happier, when in fact the times that we experience the biggest growth are the times that we're pushed the hardest, and we usually don't feel great at the time. Like, for example, the bullying thing with me, that has made me into who I am now, and I'm getting very into kind of Stoic philosophy right now, which sounds like such a fucking pretentious thing to say, but like pushing ourselves through hardship and exposing ourselves to hardship on purpose and actively seeking it out is what I think makes us into better human beings. And you can, like, I'm going to go off and run here, but you can do this through such a lot of ways. Like, you can go out and like fucking spend a night under the stars. Like, this is, God, I'm getting super hippie, but getting out of your comfort zone on a regular basis and getting into your growth zone is phenomenal. Like, it's as I said, exposing ourselves to hardship on a regular basis is a massive way to progress as a person, whether that's physical hardship through training, whether it's mental hardship through actually pushing yourself and reading a book, whether it's physical discomfort, like going for a long run, or even, like, as I said, spending a night out under the stars. Everyone's very disconnected from what makes us into better people, I think.
Yeah, I really agree with that 100%, and there's not really much more I can add to that, really. I can only relate to that myself and say how over the last few years I've pushed myself, and it's in terms of comfort, I'm living as minimalistically as I ever have. I live out of a suitcase now, or a backpack, and I'm probably the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my life in everything that I do. But I'm also the happiest and the freest. So it's
I honestly think that physical possessions bring a lot of discomfort to people, and there's a very real representation of the amount of stuff you have and your mindset.
Yeah.
I've recently done something where I've got rid of 50% of the things I've owned.
Yeah.
And I'm planning to do exactly the same in another 2 months, maybe. And I just did it on the thing. Like, the part of my books are excluded because I'm a massive nerd, but I just got rid of things I haven't used in months, and it was so liberating. I felt like a new person at the end of it.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I have an opinion on this, and I don't know if you'd agree or not, but my opinion is that the more kind of stuff we have, we get so emotionally attached to our things now, whether that's, your laptop, your phone, your car, your clothes. If somebody spills something down your favourite top, you react, you get angry. If someone smashes into your car, you get pissed off. You swear at them, some people fight, whatever it is, people get angry. And then I feel like that drains us emotionally. So when it comes to interacting with other human beings, we've kind of used this emotional fuel up and we've got nothing left. And then that affects, our relationships with people and our relationships with ourselves and being able to actually express ourselves to the things that matter. Whereas when you're living minimalistically and you don't have as much stuff and you're not attached to your stuff, you have more emotional energy to work with other people, to work on yourself. That's just a kind of thought that I've had kind of going through my head the last few weeks. I don't know if that's something you agree with or not, Tom.
Yeah, definitely. Like my overriding principle is elegance, and that's obviously very strongly linked to simplicity. And I think people have so much shit going on in their lives, and if you can simplify things as much as possible in any way, I think that's going to put you a step ahead of everyone else. I think like if you look at, for example, Mark Zuckerberg, one of the most successful people in the world right now, he wears the same clothes every day. If you look at Tim Ferriss, he goes through a week at a time, I think it's a week every quarter or something like that, where he'll eat the same meals the whole day, and he'll wear the same clothes, and it's that thing very closely linked to Stoicism again, of putting yourself through discomfort. There's, I think it's Seneca who said something like, practice what you fear most. And I think that's a really good way to live, because not only if you're practicing it, you're no longer scared of it, and that's a huge thing. So you take bigger risks, and you take like the book you lent to me, The Big Leap. Yeah. You'll take bigger leaps, and you'll push harder, and you'll get out of your limits, your limiting thoughts. And then also, if it does happen to you, you're entirely well equipped to know that it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. That's really powerful, and I definitely think that growth happens on the other side of fear. And, pretty much any time that you face fear in your life, it's just an indicator that you're about to grow and about to do big things. And if you turn away, then you're turning away on yourself and that growth. And, fear creates resistance, and if you can fight that resistance and break through it, then you're going to do big things.
100%. I'm going to go for 2 book recommendations now. One, Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. It's almost like a practical introduction to Stoic philosophy. And the other one is also by Ryan Holiday, which has just come out, called The Ego is the Enemy. And not a lot of people realise how big a role their ego plays in their life. And even if you're a very quiet person, which I typically am, very introspective, and don't generally give my opinions, which is ironic considering I'm on a podcast expressing my opinions. But not many people understand how wrapped up they are in their own ego and how it dictates what they're doing. And honestly, I'd recommend those 2 books to anyone at the moment.
Yeah, I haven't checked those out, but I will do. This sounds like good reads. So we'll wrap up there. And to finish with, just let us know where people can find you.
So, the best place to find me would probably be if you go into iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts from and search for the Alpha Movement podcast. A bit of a branding mistake. There's also a lot of religious stuff with the Alpha Movement, but I'm now beating out all the religious stuff, so you should find me at the top if you search the Alpha Movement, or if you go to my website, alphamovement.co, or you can find me on Facebook at Alpha Movement. Facebook.com/Alpha Movement Official, and then if you just search around on Facebook for Tom Foxley, I'm sure you'll find me at some point. I'm usually rattling off an opinion on something or the other. Sorry, and that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Tom. We will upload in the description those links so you can find Tom Foxley there. Make sure to check out his podcast as well, because he's had some amazing interviews on there.
Including you, mate.
Including me, yeah. I think that was episode 3 or 4. Make sure to check that one out. Cool. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll see you everyone soon.
This is another episode of Reconditioned. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Alpha Movement podcast. You can find out more about the Alpha Movement at facebook.com/Alpha Movement Official, or you can find me on Twitter at AlphamMVMT, I think. I don't use Twitter very much, but there you go. Instagram, just as Tom Foxley, or you can find me, Tom Foxley, pretty much anywhere across social media. If you enjoyed the show, please do me the favour of heading over to iTunes and leaving me a 5-star review. It helps me reach more people and therefore invest more time into the show and therefore get better guests on. On that note, I have some fantastic guests on the way, so please subscribe and you shall hear some very cool interviews coming your way in the next months and week. Ciao guys.